I absolutely loved the documentary, Albert Brooks Defending My Life, and thought it was beautifully done. And what was great was this has been long overdue because your body of work, Albert, is insanely rich and ingenious and inspiring for generations of comedians. But it took a friend, because you guys knew each other. You met in high school?
Right.
You met in high school.
Yes. And we've known each other for 60 years. And I always wanted to do this when, you remember the film, My Dinner with Andre, when it came out? I thought at that point, I said to Albert, come on, we'll go to a deli. We'll sit down. It'll be my lunch with Albert and we'll do it. And he never wanted to do it at that point. But then at a certain point, I don't know what made you change your mind, but we decided to do it. And that became the centerpiece of the documentary. The two of us just sitting in a restaurant and talking.
Someone came to me before Rob with the idea of doing a documentary, and it didn't work out. But then the idea was like, the idea but to do it is good. So then I was having dinner with Rob, and do you ever want to do my lunch with Albert? And I said, well, what if we combine this? We do that, and then we also broaden it out and do clips and talk to people.
Well, the absolute rocket fuel are the bits. And because the comedic bits that you were doing, they're evergreen. My favorite comedy has not been topical. I always thought what you were doing was absolutely magical because it was concept driven. And every single sketch bit that you've done, whether it was on The Tonight Show or the Flip Wilson Show or the Johnny Cash Show, there are people who had shows. I can't believe who had a show. Everybody had a show.
Everybody
Conan
had a
O'Brien.
show.
Yeah, exactly. Even Conan O'Brien
had a show. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But you said
it,
Conan. You said it in the documentary that it was like he broke the sound barrier. It was like Chuck Yeager.
Yes.
And they found a new way of presenting comedy. And Albert was...
Well, that's been misinterpreted. What I was saying is Albert's as funny as Chuck Yeager. And then people took it this other way.
And who was funnier, Kissinger or Chuck Yeager?
I would say Yeager.
That's not the fair thing.
But you did a kind of, there was a kind of comedy that you started.
I made up a joke the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Neil Armstrong was at a party and told these people a joke and no one laughed. He told a joke about the moon and no one laughed. And he said, well, I guess you had to be there.
I was with you. I love this moment. First time I met Albert was at this event, and I'd never met him before. And I was, I'll back up just a second because I was so relieved. You said something in the documentary, Rob, that resonated with me, which is, I think I've met everybody, just about everybody, and I'm never intimidated. I was intimidated to meet Albert. I was worried about it. I thought we're probably going to bump into each other at some point, and I felt a little queasy about it. And then you say in the documentary that you always were intimidated by Albert.
Well, it's not just intimidated. Where is this coming from? This mind. I've never met anybody that had a mind that works that way. And other comics, established comics, Larry David in the documentary says the same thing, that he was, so happy when Albert gave him approval to a joke he said or something like that. You have to understand, in the circles I was with, I don't care who they were. It was Robin Williams, Billy Crystal. I don't care who were when we got together and people started spritzing. When Albert went, it was like, challenge dance when everybody's challenging. When Albert started, everybody backed off.
Yeah.
Everybody backed off because they knew that, here comes the guy. Here's Babe Ruth stepping into the cage. And
I always thought it was a cool thing. And then when I got married, my wife said, it's because you never shower.
You think that's why they backed off? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Thought you had good personal hygiene.
It was so funny because Albert was the first time I met you. You won't remember this, but we were it was someone's house. We're standing by a pool, and you told me a joke you told me a story that was really funny, and I laughed, legitimately laughed. It was a very funny story. And you had some friend with you who I didn't know, and the friend just kind of shrugged and said, well, I guess you had to be there. And you turned on your friend and went, no, he laughed. Yeah. Apparently, you didn't have to be there. Yeah. And I was in the moment watching, and Albert.
Remember, I said, don't you understand that expression?
Yeah.
That's when nobody laughs. If somebody laughs, you don't have to be anywhere.
You don't have to be anywhere.
A stupid man.
I don't know who it was, but forever in my mind, I cherish that moment.
But Albert, we talked about this in the documentary. Albert would go on national television, live television, without ever trying out the bit he was going to do.
Yes.
That to me is, talk about working without a net. I mean, this is, in the case, Annette Funicello, which was what would make anybody good.
Uh-huh.
That's bordering on you had to be there.
We had to know that reference. But he would do this, and we shared a house together, and I don't remember it exactly, but he did the first time he did the mime piece. I don't think it worked. Did it work the first time you did it?
Well, the very first time, I don't think it worked. It was the Steve Allen show.
Yeah, it worked. So
nobody knew anybody.
The point is, he came out. He was doing a mime. And he came out in the white face and the leotards, and he never stopped talking.
It's so funny.
And so it's a brilliant piece, and it didn't play the way it should have. And then time goes by, and I think you were called to do the Tonight Show or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I said, Albert, what are you going to do on the show tonight? He says, I'm going to do the mime piece. And I said, yeah, but it didn't do well. He says, yeah, but it's funny. Yeah. I said, I know it's funny, but it didn't get the kind of... He says, yeah, but it's funny. And that's the thing that I learned about Albert, which is, it is funny. The audience has to catch up to it. They just have to know it. And Johnny Carson was hosting, and he came out, and the same kind of thing where they were a little bit hesitant. They didn't know. Johnny went.
Yeah.
And I was there. Johnny literally fell off his chair, and the audience said, I see.
Yes.
I get what this is.
A lot of times, in my experience, if the audience is looking at the host and they want permission and that they need permission, and then they know everything's okay.
Yeah.
And so that bit, come out and you're talking and you're describing, I am now walking against the wind, I'm doing it, but then it just goes into stand-up comedy as a mime about my wife. And, she said she lost 30 pounds. And I said, look behind you, you'll find it. And you're in total mime makeup and you're doing it. And the thing is that I think when I talked in the doc about breaking the sound barrier, to me, it's about the level of commitment. And it's why I think it was no surprise that you turned out to be such an excellent actor. When you're doing these pieces, I think there was a time in show business where you needed to let everybody know, I'm in show business. These are jokes. Let's have a good time. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And what you were doing was this like De Niro-like commitment to whatever you're talking about. You're looking down the barrel of the lens and you're saying, this is a very serious thing I'm doing right now. I really am the world's best pickpocket. I'm very good at it. And then you proceed to be absolutely miserable at it. But I think it's the idea combined with the intensity of the attack. That's what I always thought no one else was doing.
Yeah.
And now I think we see that, that you made it okay for everybody to sort of work.
I mean, with respect to people, the audience is the last to know anything. I never understood the idea of doing it for an audience because the audience doesn't know anything until they see it. So if you do anything they haven't seen before, you don't get immediately rewarded. Like when you're previewing a movie with cards, the movies that get 100 are the movies they've seen every other weekend.
Right. They're familiar.
They're familiar.
Yeah.
Unfamiliar doesn't get a good grade.
Yeah.
But what do? You just never do it?
Yeah,
it's the same. Right. It's the same if we go into a restaurant and it's a fine restaurant and we're served a dish. We don't know anything about this. We take the word of the person who owns the restaurant and we taste something we've never tasted. And if the world didn't have that possibility, and by the way, I think show business that's the holy grail. is no risk.
Yeah.
And I think as algorithms get mature and as more executives get parking spots, the risk is less and less because it's a business. Why do you want to take a risk?
I mean, I learned from Albert, when I saw how committed he was to doing that bit, even though when we first screened Spinal Tap, which, it was, Albert had done real life before that, but this was the first kind of about rock and roll, and it was a mock documentary, and we previewed it in Dallas. And people came up to me afterwards and they said, I don't understand. Why would you make a movie about a band that nobody's ever heard of and one that's so bad? And so it's like, they didn't know what we were doing. It took them a while to figure out that we're making fun of this, and I learned from Albert, you got to stick to your guns and hopefully the audience will catch up.